If you're sick of seeing that same Activate Windows watermark over and over, snag an OEM license from SCD Key. You'll have a fully activated OS in seconds, and you can kiss that watermark goodbye. And be sure to use menu offer code GSL for that sweet discount. This right here is the Fractal Design Define 7 Compact, or Define 7C, although I don't think that's an official term for it. We used the Define C before, the older chassis, but this one is the Compact. It's supposedly what C stood for to begin with. And this is probably my favorite new mid-tower. So the reason why I wanted to start with a shot of this front panel is because it's different than the original Define C. This is actually like a brush, I think it's aluminum or something. It's metallic, it's not plastic anymore, and it just feels epic. So we're gonna try to, whoops, okay, pull that off. You can see sound damping material on the inside there, and you've got space for up to a 360mm rad up front, which is nice. Your front I/O is connected to the top of the case, which is also removable, I should mention. But you can see that the wiring is stuck to the chassis itself, so you don't have to worry about hanging wires anywhere and snagging any of those if you're trying to remove any of your vital panels. We're gonna throw, again, a 10900K in here. We've got an Asus Z490E motherboard, the same one we used in our Lean Lee PCO11 dynamic build. I'm only using that one because the beefier one I wanted to use doesn't fit in here. One of the side effects of going with a more compact layout is, yeah, less motherboard support. So if you have something that's not ATX, more like eATX, this little indention next to the motherboard tray where the cables route through these grommets will prevent you from installing the beefier motherboards. So this is that Z490E gaming I was talking about. Again, you guys saw this in the Lean Lee 11 dynamic build if you watched that video. If not, you can check it out somewhere on that corner of the screen. Now I actually still have the two M.2 drives from the previous build in here. I'm gonna remove one of them. Oh, you didn't choose AMD, you're an Intel shill. Nate's gonna have fun editing that one. Next up, we've got 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro Modules. You liking what you're seeing, Nate?
Not at all.
Nate, you're like one video away from being fired. The Define 7 Compact has no PCIe rails that go across the backs of these slots. So you can use a vertical mount, like the Cooler Master one that would normally require you to cut through these rails for your rear I/O for your video outs. You can use one of those and not have to do any cutting at all. By the way, it is so easy to install and remove these panels. Check that out, totally toolless. So the case does come with two fans. This is a 140mm fan. This is gonna be the one that you see up front. And you could put two 140s up front if you wanted. You'd have to buy a second one of these or just buy two separate 140s. So it'll support up to 280 or 360, which is what we're going with. There's also a 120 back here at the rear. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep that one or not. I mean, it's just kind of there, and it's nice to have an exhaust fan, I suppose. So probably we'll keep that. Yeah, I think we should. What do you think, Nate? Yep, we're gonna do it. Okay, so now I know this is gonna offend some of you. I understand. This is my build. It's mine. It's my build. I do what I want. And I'm gonna turn this block kind of crooked. The lettering is gonna be facing down, like we just talked about. And that's because I want these tubes routed a certain way. I'd much rather look at beautifully managed tubes and awkward small lettering there. Actually, I think we can just turn off the LEDs in the block. Now, the power supply is next. This is an Ion Plus 760p. I figured we're building in a Thermaltake case. Might as well use other Thermaltake products. We got the C36 in there, and then we've got the Ion Plus here. 760 watts is plenty for this system, especially given the card we're using, a 2070 Super, which is pretty power efficient given how powerful it is. And then custom cables. Remember I mentioned the red earlier. These cables are gonna have just a tiny bit of red, which is pretty cool. I mean, Asus ROG, red's their color. Gigabyte, not so much. I wanted to throw an Asus card in here, but these cables were made for a different build from Ensource, and they use a bridged 8+, actually this is for the CPU, but they use an 8+6 pin bridge, and the Asus card I wanted to use, a 2080, was an 8+8. So without some janky rewiring, couldn't really pull that off. Hence, the 2070 Super, which is this beauty right here. So we're gonna funnel cables through. Not the biggest fan of this. I thought this was cool back in 2017, but this is actually a bit more annoying because you have to funnel all the cables through this small opening at the rear. I'll slide this on back and a thumb screw. What? There's nothing weird on the drive, dude. Chill. All right, so we've got our red 24 pin. Try to twist this around. All right, so this is an 8+4 pin. For a 10900K, I would try my best if I could to connect the extra 4 pin. You could probably get the system to post with a single 8 pin installed. But the thing is that this chip consumes around 300 watts of power under load when overclocked, or even at an all-core like 5.1, 5.2, depends on the chip, every chip's different. I think having this extra 4 pin is gonna come in handy. Now this is our 2070 Super, and it's looking super. We actually used this card, I believe, in our NZXT. It was like a pretty much all black build, and this card was turned vertically there. We're gonna do the same here. I just love triple fan cards. They look nice and sexy. We're gonna connect the riser cable first. Always the most difficult thing to get in there. Kind of gotta hold it there, get a thumb screw going. This could potentially be a 2-man job. Depends on how versatile you are with your fingers. The more I cable manage in this, I'm having a harder time than I would have had, and than I have had in the Meshify C and the Define C. I think they're just overcomplicated. I don't like the cable combs at all. The hard drive cage is super clunky. We didn't show you guys this, but in an earlier part of this build, I tried to remove it. I wasn't originally going to use a hard drive for my system, and we couldn't remove it because it had to, apparently the only way to remove it is from the front, from the top. But we already have our AIO in here. Had I known that, I would have taken that out first. Now look at this. I mean, I've unscrewed the hard drive cage. At this point, it's pushed back further to the left of the case than it normally would be allowed to go because there's only one place to mount screws. I can't even close the right panel. And see, if you look back here at where the hard drive cage is, these cables have effectively pushed this cage back about 2 or 3 centimeters. It sits all the way up here. I really don't even want to redo this. Like, building PCs is fun and all, but when you do it for a living and you've built probably hundreds of them by this point, things like this drive you insane. Okay, it is day 2, and because I thought I was going a bit crazy, it just seemed weird that I was having such a difficult time cable managing here because traditionally Fractal cases have been fairly easy to cable manage in. I decided to pull out a Meshify C, which we actually have from a pre-built that was sent to us for a different video. This case has significantly more cable management space in the basement, and I want Nate to get kind of up close here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So you see how far back that hard drive cage is, right? There's a solid 1.5 inches there of breathing room, enough to where you could literally shove all of these cables in here and still snugly get that right panel on. Piece of cake. You certainly could not do that here, and the reason why is because the hard drive cage sits literally right there. It's unscrewed for the purposes of demonstration in a second, I'll show you. But that's the problem. That's really the only issue I have. I expressed my concerns to Fractal Design before airing this video, so you're watching this long after I've talked to them. I didn't want to publish a video without addressing this concern because I didn't feel like this made a lot of sense to me. I was kind of surprised that this made it into production. But at the end of the day, they took the feedback that I gave them and they said that they're gonna address this with the design teams in the future. You might see changes with future iterations of these cases, like if we, for instance, see a Meshify version, you could possibly see a repositioned hard drive cage. But what this looks like is that they're recycling this from the Define 7, which has more width to it, left to right. And therefore you would have more space to cable manage. Here you don't because it's smaller overall. It's a compact case. I get that. But it's my only real qualm with this, and also the cable channels, which I'm pretty sure are removable anyway, so these aren't really a big concern. Everything else about the case I absolutely love, especially for the price. Around $100, I think $110 for the tempered glass versions. You can choose between dark tint or clear tint, which I really love because I hate only having one option and that option being dark tint. I just don't like dark tinted cases. It doesn't make much sense to me unless you just want to see your LEDs. I like seeing everything in the build, and that's why clear tint is the winner in my book. So I've actually got the hard drive cage a bit loose. You can see you can push it quite a bit further back, which is where I think it should be positioned. That's really the only QC concern that I have, but there aren't any threads to position this further back, so I kind of just have to leave it sitting in there. I don't have a hard drive in there, can't use one if I want this to go on like so. This is nice, like that's how it should be. Again, and then that's how easy it would be if the hard drive cage wasn't an issue. And now we're gonna give her a quick reveal so you guys can see what it looks like. And I would also show you what the system looks like with the LEDs on, but I'm frankly gonna turn this AIO block off because of the kind of unconventional letter directioning there. And then the graphics card just has like, you know, one LED there for the logo. And then we have LEDs for the RAM, but I'm probably not gonna go overkill. This is my personal rig and I don't like it being all blingy and flashy per se, so maybe generic white LEDs. But I wanted to build in the case just to get a feel for how it was, like, you know, the experience. Obviously I can't speak to experience unless I do build in it. And I'm glad that I did, because I did realize that one issue that it's not a deal breaker for me. And look, if you're not gonna use hard drives at all, this won't be a problem, period. But it was disappointing because the Meshify C was so good. And when you're using that as your kind of benchmark from the same company, mind you, it just leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. Nonetheless, I'll leave this link below for you guys. I think it's a sweet case. Apart from that, it's very easy to cable manage, again, apart from that, and the support, the size, the dimensions, everything looks really good in here. So a big thanks to the partners for sending out a lot of the components used in here. All this stuff is linked below if you want to build a system similar to that, including the case again. And yeah, I think that's about it for this one. Sorry for it being a bit longer, but I feel like you guys needed to know know the backstory, what was going on here. And big thanks to Fractal as well for being so upfront about it, for contacting me as quickly as they did, and for, you know, hearing me out on my side of things. So we'll see where it goes from here. You guys have been awesome. Click that thumbs up button, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one. My name's Greg. Thanks for building with me.